All righty. And Mr. Gaskins, if you'd like to introduce yourself and take it away. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm Jack Gaskins. Many of you may know me. I've been administering the Special District Accountability Program at the Florida Department of Commerce for many years now. And I've done some presentations in the past at the Association for Florida Conservation Districts, and I'm happy to do this one. We were just discussing things are always changing, and just when you think you've got it figured out, it changes again. I've designed this presentation kind of mainly geared toward people who are brand new to the Soil and Water Conservation District, and as a refresher to those who are not. I like to kind of get started out at the very basics. And I will tell you all that one of the problems that I see a lot when I talk to people, whether it's citizens or whether it's board members or whether it's staff at a special district or my next door neighbor or anybody, people don't quite understand what a special district is. And it's very important for you to understand what that is, because you might one day find yourself trying to explain it to a new person in your district, somebody who's moved in and they're interested in it, or you might be talking to somebody with the county or somebody or a legislature or somebody with the media. And so the real basic definition of a special district is it's very similar to a city or a county. It's local government. The difference being cities and counties are general purpose government. Special districts are special purpose government. They've got a governing board with policy-making powers. If you look at the definition, right there, it says it's a unit of local government created for a special purpose as opposed to a general purpose. Special districts operate within a limited geographic boundary, and they're created by one of the following: a general law, a special act, a local ordinance, or rule of the governor and cabinet. A lot of times I hear people try to compare a special district to a homeowners association, and that's incorrect. I would never recommend doing that. I've also heard people say, oh, it's quasi-government. Well, that's saying something that's a little bit lower than local government, and that's not accurate either. It is local government, period. The statutes go on to define entities that are not a special district: the school districts, community college districts, special improvement districts for the Seminole and Miccosukee tribes. The MSTUs, MSBUs, municipal service taxing or benefit units, some of these operate like special districts. They look like it, but they're not. For example, the MSTUs and MSBUs are just, they don't have a separate governing board like special districts do. They're operated by the county government. So you may be wondering, well, why is a soil and water conservation district a special district? Well, think about it. You've got a collegial governing body, meaning people who come together, they debate, they discuss, they ask questions, they get answers, and they have some authority based on a law to implement something. And so they do that by, after they discuss it and debate it, they vote on it and they implement policy. And that's something you all do. You're local. I think there's only one, all the soil and water conservation districts are single county. We have one that's multi-county, but they're all limited geographic. They're operating within a limited geographic boundary. They're created pursuant to the general law authority of Chapter 582 for a special purpose. And soil and water conservation districts are not excluded from that definition. I'll clarify, a lot of times I have heard from soil and water conservation districts personnel telling me that they think they're a 501c3 nonprofit. And I've seen that actually written down on some financial reports. But you're not a nonprofit organization. You're local government. If you look at, we talked about special districts having a special purpose, and there's about 80 of them that we have that we have classified in the official list of special districts. And soil and water conservation districts is number 6, close to the top. If we had a big giant computer screen, this list right here would go all the way down to your floor, and there would be about 80 of them listed. You can see that there's right now in July 2025, there's 49 soil and water conservation districts, which is number 6. The most popular by far, you can see, are those community development districts. Chances are some of you all might live in a community development district, so you're somewhat familiar with that. They are just exploding all over the state. I think we get a new one registering with us once or twice a week. You've heard the term dependent and independent, and that may not be clear. It's very important to understand whether you're a dependent or an independent special district, because the reporting requirements are different. They vary. So if you're a dependent soil and water district, and there's only a small handful of those in Florida, they are like a branch of the county. The county has some control over that district. And I think in all the cases of the soil and water conservation district, there's a county that controls the budget. It might be that they're providing the funds, and the district submits a budget, and the county either approves or doesn't approve that budget. So that's a dependent characteristic. But the vast majority of all the other soil and water conservation districts don't have any of these dependent characteristics you see listed here. They are independent, separate units of government. I point out here that multi-county special districts in Florida, by definition, are all independent. The exception being if there's a single county like Long Key that sits on the borderline of 2 counties. These are the totals right now for the dependent and independent special districts and the single county and multi-county. You can see there's a lot more independent special districts than there are the dependent ones, and a lot more single county than multi-county. Down here at the bottom, I've listed the soil and water conservation districts that are dependent: Blackwater, Glades, and Henry. All the rest are independent. And Chipola River is the only soil and water conservation district that is multi-county. So what are the special district policies? What does the state have to say about special districts? Well, if you look in the Act, and when I say the Act, we're talking about Chapter 189, which is the general provisions for all types of special districts in Florida. It doesn't matter whether we're talking about a water management district or a community redevelopment agency or a soil and water conservation district. The policies in that Act apply to all the special districts. And what the legislature has come out and said is special districts have to secure the public trust by registering with and reporting to the state its financial and other activities. They have to cooperate and coordinate with the county or city where they're located. They have to inform the public of their activities by complying with certain accountability requirements. So we're going to talk a little bit more about these in a few minutes. They have to provide services efficiently and equitable by complying with the minimum requirements in that Act. Special districts should never outlive their usefulness. And then the last one, which is a serious matter, we'll talk more about this later. Special districts, if you're not complying with minimum requirements, you can be subject to further state action. So I'll tell you a little bit about what the Special District Accountability Program does over at Florida Commerce. It's a one-person program. It's just I'm the only person in that program. We administer the Act, Chapter 189. We're kind of like there's this big giant financial reporting system in the state called Florida's Local Government Financial Reporting System. And it's just a massive amount of state agencies and cities and counties and special districts providing information into a system, and so that the legislature can use the information, state agencies use it to monitor special districts, local government officials use it. Mainly, you're going to see the legislature using it. They want to know what kind of government activities are going on and where and how much it's cost and so forth. they want to make sure that everything's done efficiently and effectively as possible. And it's going to help the legislature make decisions on local government matters in the state. So our role in that big giant local government financial management system is to collect information about special districts and put it out there so people know where they are and what they're doing and what their revenue source is and who's the contact person for that district and so on. So we maintain the official list of special districts. I have a clarification here because I know a lot of soil and water conservation districts in the past have been filing with and reporting to SunBiz over at the Florida Department of State Division of Corporations. And I'm not aware of any requirement for you all to do that. In fact, they called me one time and said, why do the soil and water conservation districts report to us? And I said, I don't know. They're supposed to report to us because they're a local government. They're not a corporation. They're not a business. They're not a nonprofit. So that's just in there for our clarification. The legislature requires us to collect a $175 state fee and up regarding the requirements in the act. We can't give legal advice and we can't help you with 582 and those other laws. But if you ever have questions about something in Chapter 189, your general requirements, call me. We work with about 15 state agencies to publish the Florida Special District Handbook, and we update it about every 2 years, and that covers all your general requirements, budgets, meetings, financial reporting, your ethics requirements, website postings, and on and on. There's a lot of information in that handbook. We get non-compliant status reports from state agencies and local governments that list special districts that didn't comply with their requirements, and we're required to publish those non-compliance reports on our website. We have to help state and local agencies collect delinquent reports or information from special districts. We'll talk more about that process later. And if the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee ever passes a motion telling us to initiate enforcement against a special district that didn't comply with requirements, then we have to do that. We have to declare special districts inactive. This is part of making sure special districts don't outlive their usefulness. So if any of these conditions are met, we have to publish a newspaper notice. We go through a 30-day comment period. And at the end, if there's no objections, we have to declare the special district inactive. There's no way to move an inactive special district back to active status. So once the district is declared inactive, it's gone. It's got to be dissolved. We have unfortunately had to do that with some soil and water conservation districts the last couple of years for not filing financial reports. And we're having to go through the process right now with one soil and water conservation district that didn't file financial reports last year and still hasn't. If you haven't already, it's going to probably happen to you where somebody is going to tell you, oh, special districts are not accountable. They're not transparent. Nobody knows what you're doing. You're not, and that's really not true. If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, special districts are just as accountable and transparent as cities and counties. So how are special districts held accountable? Well, number one on that list is the governing body. You all, and I'm assuming some of you in here were elected board members. You are responsible for making sure your special district does what it's supposed to be according to the enabling law, which is Chapter 582, and all other applicable laws, the Florida Constitution, laws of a general nature, public records, open meetings, financial reportings, ethics, etc. And then Chapter 189, the Act, which provides oversight and enforcement related to noncompliance with filing requirements. One of the big questions I get a lot from citizens, and it's not necessarily about soil and water conservation districts. I get a lot of calls from citizens who are upset about a community redevelopment agency or a community development district. And they ask me who oversees special districts. And my first my first answer is the governing body, just like a city or a county. Their second question is always, well, who oversees them? And the answer to that really is the citizens. We have open government, public record laws, ethics laws to enable citizens to monitor special districts, and citizens can take actions when violations occur. Another way you're held accountable and transparent is, this is a recent change. You've got to go into the elected officers of independent special districts and people who are appointed to fill a vacancy for an unexpired term have to complete 4 hours of ethics training each calendar year that covers the ethics in government and the Constitution, the Code of Ethics for public officers and employees, public records laws, and public meetings laws. And all of that can be done, from my understanding, is online. There's online modules that you can go through and meet that requirement. So if you haven't done that, it's something you're going to need to do each calendar year. Okay, another way, we talked a few slides back about special district. One of the policies of the state is we got to know you exist and we've got to know some information about you. So and I'm sure all the soil and water districts in the state have already registered with the program and we know about you. But you've got to file with us, keep updated, registered agent name and registered office address, file changes immediately. Don't wait until we do that state fee in October. If you have an address change or you have a registered agent change, immediately send an email. There's the email address right in the middle of the screen, and let me know who the new registered agent is. You do have to pay a $175 state fee every year. You have to look over the profile for your district, and that's the information we have in the official list that we put out there for all the state agencies to use to monitor you. Look over that information, make sure it's correct, let us know if it's not correct. And you have to maintain an official website. And there's certain things that have to be on that website. Now, another thing that a lot of special districts I'm finding don't even know about and don't do, and it's very important that you do it, is you've got to maintain documents and information with the county. You've got to send this stuff to the clerk of the board of county commissioners, your budget. Let them know who your registered agent is, their name and their address. File your schedule of regular meetings with them every year. And if they request any kind of financial information from you, provide it. All right, there's meeting requirements. And this is sometimes where I say, special districts are just as accountable as cities and counties, maybe even more so, because Chapter 189 makes you do all the things that cities and counties do, plus some additional requirements in Chapter 189. And then in this case, there's the Administrative Procedures Act, which applies to certain special districts, including soil and water conservation districts, that makes you give notice of your meetings by publishing them in the Florida Administrative Register. Now, this is a requirement over in Chapter 120, not 189. So it's nothing I can really help you with. I would say maybe the Department of Agriculture, or if you have an attorney, make sure you're doing that right. Messing up on your meeting notices is something you don't want to ever do, because a citizen can go take some action and go before a judge and have every decision you made at that meeting invalidated, and you have to start all over. So you've got to comply with Chapter 190 for your meetings. The second thing is the Sunshine Law, and there's 3 pieces of that Sunshine Law. Chapter 286, the meetings have to be open to the public. The meetings have to be noticed to the public, reasonable notice, and then you have to promptly record minutes and make them available for public inspection. Then you have Chapter 189 that gives you even more meeting requirements. You've got to do a regular public meeting schedule quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. You put the date, the time and location of each meeting. You have to publish it pursuant to Chapter 50 Florida statutes. You have to file it with the county. You have to put it on your website. You have to post your meeting and workshop agendas on your official website at least 7 days before the event, and you have to keep it there at least 1 year. You have to hold your meetings in a public building, the local county courthouse, or a building in the county that's accessible to the public. So you can't have it at somebody's private home. For a meeting held by an independent special district, which is probably most of you all, if you're having some other meeting, you've got to publish notice pursuant to Chapter 150, which is usually in a newspaper or on the county's website. Oops. If it's a non-emergency meeting, you have to advertise the day, the time, the place, and the meeting no fewer than 7 days before the meeting. If it's an emergency meeting, you hold it as needed, and you ratify the meeting later. I know sometimes these come up if we're having a hurricane and something, an emergency, and you need to make some sort of decision, and you've got to have an emergency meeting. You have to maintain access to public records. Again, this goes back to how citizens monitor special districts, how citizens monitor cities and counties. The public records include documents, papers, letters, maps, books, tapes, photographs, films, sound recordings, data processing software, and so on. That might be related to your correspondence, your emails, your text messages, Facebook posts, recordings of governing body meetings, employment applications, evaluations, and disciplinary records. Hopefully you all are able to budget for an attorney, because there's times when you want to make sure that you're providing public records timely, and that you're not releasing information that might be exempt. For example, there might be social security numbers and things like that are exempt. You have to permit the record to be inspected and copied by any person at any reasonable time, under reasonable conditions, and under supervision by the custodian of the public records. Then you have your budget requirements. This is important. If it's not in your budget, you can't do it. You can't spend a single penny on something that is not in your properly adopted budget that was adopted at a properly noticed public meeting. So you're always going to make sure you adopt an annual budget by resolution at a public meeting. You can only spend what's in that budget. And again, then the second requirement for spending money is you've got to have the authority to do it. So Chapter 582 has to give whatever the activity is, there's got to be a reasonable authority to do that activity in Chapter 582. You have to post your tentative budget on your official website at least 2 days before your budget hearing that you're holding, and you have to keep it there at least 45 days. Your budget, you have to, and this is when it's helpful to have somebody who's a CPA or somebody who understands budgeting, follow generally accepted accounting principles, show budgeted revenues and expenditures by an organizational unit, and it's got to be at least at the same level of detail required for that annual financial report. And that we're going to talk about in a minute. That's the report you do every year to the Department of Financial Services when you report your revenues, your expenditure, and your debt, and some other information. And you have to keep the budget on your official website for at least 2 years. Budget amendments. You can do a budget amendment within the fiscal year or up to 60 days at the end of the fiscal year. So the appropriations for the expenditures within a fund can be decreased or increased by a motion recorded in the minutes. That's fairly easy, as long as the total appropriations of the fund do not increase. The governing body of your district can establish procedures by which the designated budget officer may authorize certain amendments if the total appropriations of the fund do not increase. Now, for other purposes, in other words, if you're increasing the appropriation of a fund, You adopt the amendment by resolution. You put it on your official website within 5 days after you've adopted it, and you keep it there for at least 2 years. This is a biggie, and this is where a lot of special districts get in trouble. Is the state takes it very seriously when a special district or a city or a county is required to do a financial audit and they don't. And so for an audit, you have to do a financial audit if your annual revenues or combined expenditures and expenses exceed $100,000, or they fall between 50 and 100, and you haven't had a financial audit the previous 2 fiscal years. You have to, when you're selecting an auditor, you have to designate an auditor selection committee to choose a licensed independent CPA to do that audit. If you're an independent special district, you have to file a separate report. Now, the dependent special districts, and there were 3 of them, if they meet that threshold requirement, their audit can be included in the county's audit. You have to file by mail and email that the audit within 45 days after the CPA delivers it to the governing body, but never ever no later than June 30th. That's 9 months after the fiscal year end. So all special districts are supposed to be used in a fiscal year that starts October 1 and ends September 30th. And so 9 months after September 30th is June 30th. So we just passed June 30th. Hopefully you all, if you met these requirements, you've done your audit and you've got it filed with the Auditor General. The annual financial report, that's different from the audit. This is what we were just talking about, where you log into the Department of Financial Services, you report your revenues, your expenditures, your long-term liabilities, and other information. Again, the independent special districts have to file a separate report. The dependent special districts can be included in the county's report. And those are the ones that are not, well, I'm sorry, the special districts that are not a component unit file a separate report. The dependent special districts that are a component unit have to provide their financial information to the county so in time for the county to put it in their report. So you may be wondering, well, what's a component unit? That's an accounting term, and it's something that's made, it's a decision made by the CPA for the district. If you're a dependent special district and you don't know whether you're a component unit, that would be something to ask somebody in their finance office. If you amend your final adopted budget, this is something new within the last several years. They make you include a budget variance report when you're submitting your annual financial report, showing your original budget, the final budget, the actual budget, and the variance with that final budget. And that's just something you can do whatever format you want. You've just got to provide that information. Again, just like the audits, this is due by June 30th, 9 months after the fiscal year end. The bad news here, and I hate to tell you bad news, but this morning I went to the Department of Financial Services website and I pulled up the non-compliance list of all the cities, all the counties, all the have not yet filed that annual financial report by June 30th. And there were cities, there were counties, there were a bunch of special districts, and unfortunately there are 20 have not logged on to this website and put in your revenues, expenditures, and long-term liabilities. If any of, I'll be in the office tomorrow, call me, and I can look on the list and see if your district is listed on there. If it's delinquent, it's something that you need to jump on very quickly. We're going to talk about consequences in just a few minutes. Again, that's special district, part of your accountability and transparency. You have to have an official website. That's in Chapter 189. Cities and counties don't have to have a website as far as I know. So this is one of those requirements, in my opinion, that helps hold special that makes special districts more accountable in a lot of ways than cities and counties. So you've got to have this official website. You've got to put your public purpose statement on there. You've got a written description of your boundaries, and that should be pretty easy. It would be the boundaries of the county. A description of your services that you're doing. Creation document. A lot for soil and water districts, and I get this question a lot, is what is our creation document? And the way I've, doing my research, what I've been able to figure out is a lot of these soil and water conservation districts were created back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And the way it was done was under 582, there was a referendum held. And if the referendum passed, it was created. And then there was this state soil conservation board at the Department of Agriculture that just kind of recognized, okay, yeah, the referendum was approved and this soil and water conservation district was created. So that's really, you're not going to necessarily find a creation document like you may have seen for some of these other special districts that can go on for pages and pages. Your charter basically is chapter 582. That's where you get your authority. Again, there might be a referendum out there. I know several years back, somebody at the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services spent a lot of time trying to track down whatever they could, and for some of these districts going back to the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And one of the things we found out was a lot of these documents were destroyed in a courthouse fire, or there was a hurricane or a flood or something, and these referendums were lost and they're not there. So on your website, make sure you have a link to Chapter 582 Florida statutes. If you have a copy of that approved referendum or the State Soil Conservation Board resolution recognizing the district, put that on there too. If you have any rates or authority for taxes or fees or assessments or charges, you're going to list those. The general contact information for the special district, and then make sure for each governing body member, you've got an official address, which is going to probably be the district's official website, and an official email address, not their personal address, but the official email address for each governing body member. A lot of times I've gone to websites, something is happening and I need to contact, I can't get a hold of the registered agent, I need to get a hold of somebody, and it's very common for me to get onto those websites and I find the names of the governing body member, but no email address, no phone number, no contact, no address. And I'm just trying to help. I'm just trying to get a message to you all, and I can't. But again, the law requires that information to be on there. We've already talked about your meeting schedule and workshop agendas. Those go on the website. Your final adopted budget and certain budget amendments go on the website, and a lot of other things too. This is not an inclusive list. If you go to the handbook, there's a section in the handbook that has a listing of everything that has to be on your website. You've got to put on there links to financial reports, and I've got those there where people can click on the link and go find your annual financial report or your audit if you had to do an audit. New this year is the goals and objectives annual report. This is something you're going to have on your website by this coming up December 1, covering the fiscal year that ends September 30th, 2025. And my suggestion to people when you're doing these goals and objectives is make it as something that you can easily document, that here was our goal. Here's how we measured it. Here's how we documented that we met that goal. Go back to your budget. Look what activities you had in your budget for this fiscal year, and then turn those items into a goal. Put your objectives on how you're going to measure it and your standards for how you're going to determine whether it was achieved. Then you have to list any goals or objectives not achieved if there are any. All right, consequences of non-compliance. I'm sensitive to the fact that a lot of special districts, including soil and water conservation districts, you all are volunteers. You're not getting paid for what you do. And there are some people doing very similar things to what you're doing that are getting a lot of money. And I've talked to districts before. Again, it's not necessarily soil and water districts, but it's a lot of the smaller districts in Florida. And I hear that, we're just a volunteer. We don't get paid for this. The situation is it's a local government. You may be using public resources, public money, and the state takes that very seriously. And even if you are a volunteer, and districts can get in trouble for not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So in Chapter 189, there is an oversight, depending on how you were created, there is an oversight entity that can take action. So in the case of the dependent special districts, that would be the county. In the case of the independent special districts, it's the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House. And they can just say, yeah, we need to do an oversight review of these districts to find out, should it continue to exist? What are its future roles? Do we need to make improvements? Do we need to make changes? And so on. We talked about already for noncompliance, citizens oversee governing boards. They oversee cities, counties, and special districts. And when they call me with complaints, the first thing I tell them is maybe it's just an oversight. Bring it to their attention and ask them to fix it. Go to a board meeting and just ask them, bring it to their attention and ask them to address the situation. Citizens can request the oversight entity. They can go to their state representative and say, I think you need to get the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House to convene this general oversight review. Unfortunately, sometimes not with soil and water districts a lot, but with some of the other districts, I hear about criminal activity, stealing money. Call local law enforcement. If a special district is violating ethics laws, they can go to the Commission on Ethics. If they're violating meeting laws, public record laws, go to the local elected state attorney's office and file a complaint. Talk to your legislature, talk to your county representative. And then last, seek advice from a private attorney. My office has nothing to do with citizen complaints. We can't do anything. The only thing we can do, and I'll talk, just getting ready to talk about it, is if the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee tells us to take action for a district that's not filing financial reports. The county can take action. Remember earlier we talked about those documents you're supposed to be filing with the county, your meeting schedule, your registered agent, and office information. If you're not following that with the county and you're a dependent special district, they can do whatever they deem necessary to enforce it. And that would probably mean withholding funds. Now, if you're an independent special district, the county would notify the registered agent, give you 30 days to get it in. If you're still not getting it in, they can file a non-compliance status report with us. We have to put it on our website. We will send a certified technical assistance letter to the special district requiring a response. And if there is not a response, then we can start the process of declaring the district inactive. And that would, like I said, that would shut it down permanently. Okay, this is the most common, what we have to do here. I'll kind of step through what happens if you don't file an audit or that annual financial report. And like I mentioned, there's 20 soil and water conservation districts that have not filed the annual financial report that was due this past 30th. What could happen any day now? I think usually it happens in July. Sometimes that happens in August or September. We get that non-compliance status report from the Department of Financial Services. And it's going to list all the districts in the state that didn't meet that June 30th deadline to file the annual financial report. We have to send a certified letter to the registered agent that describes the reporting requirement, how to file it, what are the deadlines, how to get help if you need it. We have to require that you file it within 60 days of the letter. We do not have authority to give you any more time than 60 days. And then we explain the penalties for continued noncompliance, which is circuit court enforcement and a declaration of inactive status that would shut the district down permanently. So if you get one of those letters from us, file within 60 days. If you can't file within 60 days, it is vital to be in touch with me about the reason and in writing. Why can't you meet that deadline, that 60-day deadline? What steps are you taking to prevent this from ever happening again? And the estimated date that you were planning to get that annual financial report or audit filed. Then there's the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee. They will meet, and for a special district created by special act, which is not you, they can hold a public hearing. Local ordinance, local resolution, doesn't apply to you all. So that wouldn't happen. But what they will do is they're going to meet to review the written responses that you sent to me saying, here's why we can't meet the 60 days. Here's what we're doing. And then they'll make a decision, delay action to give you more time to get it in based on your response. Or they'll tell us to declare you inactive, or they'll tell us to file a petition for enforcement in the Leon County Circuit Court. What I can tell you about this is if you're communicating with us and you're telling us we're working on it, we're having some problems, we're trying to get it in, here's the date, and then if that date changes, you let me know. If you're doing that, chances are you're going to stay out of trouble. The districts that get in trouble, that end up being served a petition for enforcement by a deputy sheriff or a service agency, are the districts who totally ignore these certified letters. They don't respond. They don't say, here's what happened. They don't file their reports. All we get is the sound of crickets. I promise you, those special districts are going to get in trouble. And it's something that can so easily be avoided just by communicating with me. Send me an email. This is the last page of the slide, and I've put here a lot of resources that I think will help you. The website to our program, specialty area resources and contacts. You might have questions about ethics. That's something that I can't help you with. That's not my specialty. But if you go to this page, there's a phone number or a name or an email address or something else where you can get some help about that. Then there's the handbook that we do with about 15 state agencies that we maintain. We keep it up to date. Go there and learn all about your requirements. If you want to learn about accountability and oversight, there's a page. There's the official list of special districts. I would say everybody go to this website, the official list, go down to list number 4. It's an alphabetical list of all the special districts. Find your district, download the profile, and look at it. If anything is outdated, a phone number, an address, a registered agent's name, send an email to me and I'll get it updated. The non-compliant status reports we talked about are on that page. And my contact information is down here. Again, I'm a one-person program. That phone number rings right on my desk. That email comes right to my computer. And I try to make myself accessible as possible. So that's basically the presentation. And I'm free to try to answer any questions if anybody has them.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Gaskins. We'll let everybody unmute and let them ask any questions if there are any. And I must say, you have been very accessible. We really appreciate your help with this on behalf of all of the districts in Florida. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Go ahead.
Hi, this is Dr. O from Orange. I was wondering if this slideshow is going to be emailed to us.
Yes, absolutely. We'll be emailing it. We'll be posting it on our website, although our URL will be changing, and we'll be sending out an update on that. But yes, I'll make sure that it's emailed to all of the participants. And we'll be posting the last workshop that we had, which was on writing annual reports and developing goals and objectives. We'll be doing that for all of ours. The next one coming up will be the ethics presentation.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Gaskins. That was an excellent presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate you telling me.
Hi, Mr. Gaskins. This is Jessie Bastos, Supervisor for District 4 of the Broward Soil and Water Conservation District. I was
Yes,
curious. Hi. I was curious if there is any state assistance that you're aware of that might be available for website hosting for conservation districts.
I am not aware, and that's a frequently asked question, and I am not aware of any. The only suggestion that I might have is approach the county and see if they would do it. The thing is that the way Chapter 189 reads is the independents have their own separate website. So it's not really going to be like using their templates. They would have to agree to host you and let you have your own little template somewhere on their server. If that's all I know to suggest. Otherwise, it's something that you need to budget for every year and make sure you do it. And the reason why that this is so important, and I'm glad you brought this up, is the meeting, putting the meeting schedule and the meeting agendas on your website. Because if you don't do that, somebody could say you did not properly notice a meeting. You didn't put the agenda out there. You didn't put the date and time on your website like Chapter 189 requires you to do. They can go before a judge and they can have that entire meeting invalidated, and you have to start all over. So that's very important. Make sure you've got an official website and make sure you're getting those meeting documents uploaded timely.
Got it. Thank you so much. This has been very informative.
You're welcome. And if go ahead. I mean, I was going to say, if you think of questions later, I'll be back in the office tomorrow. You can call me.
Yes, this is
Anything else?
enlightening on some tasks that I need to get to. So, I may indeed be calling you tomorrow.
Sure. I should be there.
All
I'm
right.
looking at the non-compliance, special districts non-compliance, and somehow I'm missing the soils and water.
Well, it's not a separate list for soil and waters. It's all the special districts listed alphabetically. That's how the Auditor General and Financial Services sends it to us.
Oh,
So you're not going to find a separate one for you all. It's just mixed in there with everybody else.
I had put a
Oh.
link in the chat where you can look at a list of non-compliance by year. And it lists counties and then cities and then I believe special districts. So I had to scroll through a few pages before I got through to the special district.
That's right. That sounds like the one that the Department of Financial Services puts out that I looked at this morning, because it started out, I believe, with counties and then cities and then special districts on there. And to find out and they're not in order. It's not even in alphabetical order from what I could tell. So the way that I found the conservation districts was I just did I opened it up in my browser and I did a word search for the word conservation, and I got 23 hits. Out of those 23, 3 of the soil and water conservation districts filed the report already, but it was filed late. It was filed after June 30th. But then there were 20 soil and water conservation districts that did not have a file date at all in there. And that's what's important. And if you're on that list, and again, if you don't know, call me tomorrow and I'll look for you. But if you're not on that list, this is something that you need to jump on immediately tomorrow. And if you see that you're not going to be able to timely get that in, send an email to me, let me know what's going on and give me an estimated date. I can go ahead and get that over to the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee so they have it and they know what's going on. If you're not following an audit, you're not following the financial report, that's that's about as serious as it gets when it comes to enforcement.
Well, if it's supposed to be under the Florida Department of Financial Service, Bureau of Financial Reporting, the last one on here is 2023. It's 2024 is not on it.
I know the
Yeah.
link. I have that one up as well.
Yeah, they changed their website.
Yeah,
And at the very top of the page, you select the year. And so this morning I was able to select 2024. So you might be on the old website. I'm not sure, but if you want to call, if you can't find it, call me tomorrow. I'll help you find it.
um, the link I put in the chat just goes to a general report thing. So then I had to pick a few things.
Yes, you do have to pick a few things. And like if you go halfway down the page and over on the right, there's these little boxes and you have to find the non-compliant report. I think it says local government non-compliant report or something like that.
Yeah, I think this one just said non-compliant report, and then you have to pick the year and what format you want it
And
in.
what format you want. That's right. It sounds like that's it. And you'll just have to do a word search for your district to see if it's on there.
Yeah, and then the most recent is 23.
You might be on the old.
23.
Okay, there is one for 2024. I saw it this morning. Call me tomorrow and I'll help you find it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Do we have any other questions? We're a little bit before 7.
What, I don't think I saw on the slideshow the exact bulleted things that we need to do for the county. Did I miss that?
Yes, it's in there. Let me see if I can find it.
For independent, I thought you said it and not,
Yeah,
maybe
let's see
I
if I
missed-
can. Let me see if I can find that. Yeah, right here on this page 13. Maintain documents and information with the county.
okay.
Budget, registered agent and registered office information, your regular meeting schedule, and then the financial information if they request it. Again, the dependent special districts have to file that because they are going to need it to put it in the annual financial report. But the independent ones, you don't necessarily have to give it to them unless they request it.
So, the agendas, now that's my question is agendas have the 7-day, but.
So the agendas go on the website.
Okay, but the agenda doesn't have to be turned in.
No, it does not.
Okay,
Just the schedule.
I think you can put that
Okay.
giving the county the schedule on the same kind of timeline as turning it into the Florida Register if you're doing that, or getting all the dates up on the website.
Right.
And I did download the non-compliance list as a PDF, so I dropped it in the chat. If you open the chat, you should be able to click on it and open it.
but it's only one. That was only for the 3. What I saw was only 3 counties. Unless I didn't see everybody's, unless I'm seeing the wrong thing.
Let's see,
Yeah,
this was just a few comments up in the chat. It should say public non-compliant govs _ 2024.pdf.
Somehow I got just, unless there's multiple pages, I only got one page.
Oh,
there's a lot of pages because there's
Yeah.
counties and cities and then a bunch of
Okay,
there were 200 and something special districts when I looked.
okay.
why don't I go ahead and email it to you for backup, and then
That would be good. I'll
you
try and drop it in the
Gaskins if there's
Dropbox.
anything else you need on that. That's no problem.
Okay, I'll drop it in my Dropbox. It'll open there.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thank you all for attending tonight. If there's no more questions, I guess we can go ahead and wrap it up and then stay apprised for any new trainings. But the next one coming up will be our ethics training. And I appreciate everyone
Wonderful.
attending tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And thank you, Amy, for organizing these.
Oh, thanks, Jesse. Thank you, Mr. Gaskins, and all of the great folks who are working for the state who have just been so wonderful about coming forward and helping us do this and not having to charge anybody anything for it. So that's
Oh, you're
really
very welcome. Anytime.
all right. We'll go ahead and stop
Okay.
recording and end the meeting then. Everyone have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.